and welcome once again. It's another season. It's here, and we're really excited. This is your backstage pass to the Boscov's Berks Jazz Fest. 27 years now, and it keeps getting bigger and better and stronger. And this truly is backstage. Well, actually, it's upstage at the balcony at the Miller Center, because the, I guess you could say, official start of Jazz Fest was today, and it was the matinee for the Peter White Christmas. And a perennial favorite here at the Boscov's Berks Jazz Fest is none other than Rick Braun. Thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome, Joe. Great to be here.
Quite a show.
It is always fun to come back home. It's always emotional for me to come back home because I think about all those things, and family always comes by, and there's food backstage that, I always enjoy. Like I walk in the cruise eating Philadelphia cheesesteaks from the place down the street, and
without.
It's great. It's just a beautiful thing.
So there's no extra angst or anything like that, or pressure? I shouldn't say angst, pressure, because family's here. Is it a different energy for you?
My brother plays the trombone. My brother, and I don't know, people, I always want to announce this. He came out, and he's actually a part of the show, even though people don't know it. He's on the recorded track we use to embellish the end of O Holy Night, and his trombone playing is in there. And so I always know he's in the audience because John Ernesto and the gang here always takes good care of my family. I spring them with like 15 guests at the last minute. It's never a problem. God bless you, John. And, he's out there. So there's always that pressure of, okay, Russ is listening. He's going to hear it if I mess up. So I play a little bit more careful, a little bit more deliberate.
They have the right to poke at you a little bit.
And they do.
I'm sure. That's what family's for, right? That's 'cause they love
exactly.
You. Yes, and we all do. You're doing something different. Even after 27 years, you've been actually a staple of the Jazz Fest, but you're changing it up a bit this year. A couple of years back, maybe more than a couple, you really Sings with Strings.
Right.
And there's a song on there called Chet Baker Sings.
No, actually, on that Sings with Strings, there isn't. But I did do a Chet Baker. We were talking about the tribute that I did for Chet Baker.
Oh, okay.
It's not released. It didn't quite come out exactly the way that I would like to do. But I did a Chet Baker tribute here at the Berks, over at the Crown Plaza in the bar there in Gerald Veasley's club.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun. And what I did is I recreated a lot of Chet's performances, and I tried to really capture what Chet was doing in his minimal, laid-back, understated way of singing. And I actually learned several of his solos. So I would start out solos on songs like Let's Get Lost or Daybreak. You Don't Know What Love Is. I would actually emulate Chet's playing on that.
Why Chet? What is it about Chet that inspires you?
Gosh, there's so much about Chet that has inspired so many people. I was fascinated with Chet Baker. And it's interesting because I didn't find out really about him until later on. My early influences were people like Al Hirt, Freddie Hubbard, Herb Alpert, and stuff like that. And then I found Chet later on in life. And once I discovered him, it was clear to me that he was one of the most gifted musicians around. And the fact that he was the champion, along with Dave Brubeck and Jerry Mulligan and Stan Getz, of the West Coast Cool movement, he was such a lyrical, melodic player, but his choice of notes was so deep and so wonderfully leading through the changes. There's a choice of so many notes to play, and lots of players play a whole bunch of notes and they hit some right ones along the way. Chet only played the right notes. He only played the right notes, and he played them in such an understated, emotional way that I think he influenced a generation. He influenced so many people.
It's interesting you talk about he always played the right notes, and so you use your instrument, you use your trumpet to evoke an emotion.
Yeah.
That is your musical voice, that trumpet, and you eke emotion out of that.
Well, that's the ultimate goal of every musician, and it's like I was blessed enough to, when I first moved away from Allentown, went to Rochester, New York, went to school, left school early, and went to Los Angeles and recorded an album that was produced by the great Tio Macero. Tio Macero produced Miles Davis and produced Bitches Brew and many of his records. And what I learned from him is it's not so much what you say, it's what you don't say sometimes.
Oh.
In other words, Miles was an artist of just burp, he'd play like 3 notes as opposed to the way that music was in the bebop era, and Dizzy Gillespie just playing like a
Yes.
like a
Fire.
maestro
Yeah.
and fire. But Miles brought in the cool, and I think that's what Chet Baker, in some ways, he was championing that cause on the West Coast, and Miles Davis was doing it on the East Coast.
And now you're doing it on both coasts as well.
I would not in a million years put me in that category.
I just
But,
did. You're there, Rick.
but I'm enjoying the process. I really am.
You're putting down the trumpet and you're using your voice now. That is your I wouldn't say your instrument of choice, but it is now an instrument that you are putting forth on the stage. So do you like one better than the other? How is it different to evoke emotion with your voice versus the trumpet?
Well, I'll tell you what. When I practice at home, what I'll do is I'll take a standard, and I'll play, and then I'll put my horn down and I'll sing it, and then I'll play a chorus, and then I'll put my horn down and improvise a chorus vocally. And it's interesting how one influences the other, and the other, and it's like I can sing things that I cannot play.
Really?
And the interesting thing about that is if I allow the singing to influence my playing, it becomes more like Chet. And what I discovered after reading biographies and, As Though I Had Wings, and biographies and autobiographies of his, the guys in the band, he would constantly be singing. He was constantly singing and improvising vocally, like really quietly. And the singing was the thing that influenced his playing.
And you're finding you're doing that as well.
Yeah, I try to because it forces me to play more melodically. Forces that,
I can't wait. You're doing a whole show called The Music of Chet Baker.
Yes.
I think it's the last weekend of the festival, the 7th and 8th. And I think
it's the 8th. Okay, we're doing it the 8th. John Ernesto's here.
8th?
He's sorting us out right now.
And that one's going to be at the South Side Parlor, Berks.
Yes.
At the Doubletree.
Yes,
So that's something new as well.
Yeah, I was just speaking with John about it, and we're very excited because the Club South down in Philadelphia has gotten involved, and so it's kind of a partnership. And I'm really excited. It's going to be all decorated out like the club. And, of course, that club is a wonderful place to go and play. I've done that once, and Gerald just invited me back, so I'm excited about that. Looking forward to it, big time.
Mini replica right here. And then you're doing the West Coast Jam.
Right.
What's that?
Well, I don't know if people know this, but I've been producing records for many, many years, and I've produced several of Richard Elliott's records, as well as Marc Antoine's and David Benoit's, and Jeff Golob's, most of his records, and I produced my own records. And I produced Richard's last record, and he wanted to do a record that was really the funk. It was like all about the funk, and so we worked on this record, and it has a horn section, it has all this spontaneous jamming on it, and so that's what he wanted to do, is put together a package that would carry that message out there. And it's going to be a lot of fun because it's me, Norman Braun, and Richard Elliott, and we're going to bring a young horn section with us, and we're going to, try to find the energy to do some dance steps that we used to do back in the day when he toured with Tower of Power and I was with War and Jack Mack and the Heart Attack. We all had our steps. I think if we can remember them, we might be able to do them.
That's going to be a fun night.
It's going to be fun.
There's a series running right now, and it's all about the evolution of sound and its influences and the technology on the music industry.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, as a producer, you're producing, you're playing the trumpet, you're singing. What brings you the most joy?
Well, I think it's a balance, because if I was constantly touring, I would never get to see my family, and I would feel really uncentered. I need to be home. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there comes a point where I'm working at home all the time, and I'm in the studio, I'm walking into the kitchen at all hours, I'm leaving a mess in the kitchen where my wife says, "Isn't it time you went out on tour?"
Rick's home.
And, the kids get a little tired of Dad walking in. I'm trying to find the right sound for this and that. But, I'm really, really blessed, because I think balance is the most important thing in life. And to have that balance of being home and also being blessed with a family, and a wife in particular who who has the sturdy rock-like constitution to put up with all the changes that happen in a musician's life. I mean, you can imagine. And we have a special needs daughter, so it's not easy. It's not easy, you know.
Balance, I like the word. I like the word that you used. And balance is something you bring to your music. And when you provide that outlet for all of us to enjoy it, you give us a little balance because we need a break from whatever is going on in our life.
That's true.
This
That's
has
true.
been a pleasure, Rick. Thank you very much for taking the time and looking forward to the concerts in April and, of course, another one this evening.
Well, and I am too. It's always great to be home, and you know, so glad to be able to continually come back home, and that people are willing to come out and hear me play again and again and again. I'm trying some new stuff, folks.
Don't miss it. That's what's a little snippet of the 27th annual Boscov's Berks Jazz Fest, kicking it off with Rick Braun. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.